Hi guys, and welcome to another Is It Worth It? And this time we are going to be covering the M3 Light, or the M3 Stuart Light Tank to give it its correct name. This is the same M3 Stuart that is available in the game. It is the Tier 3 American Stuart. However, it is the M3 Light is slightly better than the stock version of the M3 Stuart on the American line, but slightly worse than the fully upgraded M3 Stuart. This is the tank that was given out by Wargaming to people who finished the original tutorial before the tutorial was revamped. It is now only available through prizes or on occasion through the gift shop. It is probably the most common light tank used in World War II. It was manufactured by the Americans, but it was lend-leased to the USSR and to the British, where it got a lot of use. In the game, the version of the M3 Light is the one that was lend-leased to the USSR. So it is a Soviet Tier 3 light tank. It is a premium, and its gold price is unknown. So the best way to start the M3 Light review is to compare it to the other Tier 3 premium vehicles. So we're going to start with the M3 Light, and we're going to take a look at the Locust, the subject of my last review, and is a tank that I absolutely love. So that's going to have to go here. We're going to review it against the German Tier 3 premium light tank. And then there are two other Soviet light tanks. We'll compare those as well. And there we go. So let's take a quick look at these stats, and I'll try and make it quicker this time than last time. As you can see, it falls bottom on hit points. It's got the least hit points of all the Tier 3 premium vehicles, even though it's only 30 or 40 hit points lower than some of the others. You really do feel it. You can take a hit less and it kills you. We'll take a look at the weight, and again, it is amongst the heaviest. It's only slightly lighter than the T127, which I don't really classify as a light tank anyway, but it is definitely the heaviest of all the light tanks. The engine power is the second best. It is second only to the T15, but just remember the 268 horsepower is pushing a vehicle that is over 12 tons. So the acceleration is not the best. The M22 Locust acceleration is significantly better, and the T15 also seems to accelerate a lot better, but then that has a better engine and weighs less. The speed limit is pretty impressive at 61 kilometers an hour compared to 64 on the Locust and 60 on the T15, and well above the other Russian light tanks. So this thing is fast, and I enjoy that about the tank. The traverse speed is amongst the worst of all the Tier 3 premiums. Only the T127 has poorer traverse speed, and the turret traverse, which I don't tend to look at that much, but the turret traverse is 40, which puts it on par again with the M22 Locust, which is not a bad thing, even though it's there are other tanks that do it better. So we find ourselves on Arctic, and this map is perfect to test the speed and traverse of the M3 Light, and we are just going to go. So knock it up on set to ×2 speed, and we are already doing over 50 kilometers an hour, getting up to 60, and we are leaving our team well behind. So this tank is quick. So we are in position. Now it can be sluggish acceleration wise, but it keeps its speed quite well. So first enemy spotted. So we take a shot, we pull back. We're going to change the angle. eventually. So we're in a tier 4 game, and from the Locust review you saw how well the Locust could do against tier 4s. The M3 Lite has a more difficult time, and the engine power is causing me some problems. Can't get up here, but we've changed the angle. So we take a shot, we pull back. And now I wedge myself in, and I can't reverse. I'm wedged in. So, small mistake. Ended up taking a hit. But my effectiveness here is over. There's an AMX further up. And it seems like our other flank is getting swamped. So I need to get over there. And this is where the speed and maneuverability of this tank really come into effect. I'm on one side of the map. We're losing the other side very rapidly. I'm doing 61 kilometers along here. So we can get up to speed quite easily. I want to get over there and flank. But a Hetzer appears to my right. So we've got to take care of the Hetzer before we do anything else. And as you can see, the accuracy, which is the worst of all the tier 3 premiums, caused me to miss quite a few shots. But we do manage to circle him to death. So traverse speed is not the best, but it's enough to beat a TD. So again, we're using our speed. More enemies spotted. I move forward. I see Artie over to my left. So again, take a few shots, move forward. Okay, I'm thinking of going after Artie, but he suicides. But we've lost this flank, so I need to get up in case the enemy team start capping. So I'm still thinking about flanking, but... Oh, Martyr 38T knows what I'm up to. I take a shot, and then I figure, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm not going to go head-to-head against a Martyr. So let's forget that. And again, using the speed, using the maneuverability to get back up to try and prevent the cap. But we're capping. And I come across a Matilda, and you'll see that I have no way of penetrating the Matilda. But it looks as if we're going to win. So go back to double speed. No need for me to stop the cap. We're going to win. And there we go. We've just won. So the tank's speed and maneuverability allowed me to maneuver around the map, and I like that in a tank. So even though we don't have the gun that the Locust has, it still can be a fun tank to play. Okay, now that the engine power, speed and traverse speed are out of the way, let's take a look at the hull armor and turret armor, and they are significantly better than most of the other tier 3 premium tanks. We've got 38mm on the front of the hull and the turret, and 25mm everywhere else, both hull and turret. So the armor is actually quite good. It is much better than the Locust. It is much better than the T15, both on the hull and the turret. It is better than the LTP on hull and turret, and only the T127 beats the M3 Light for armor, and I class the 127 as almost a heavy tank, even though it's a light tank. So the armor can be quite troll, and I have bounced shots. It is particularly effective against lower tier tanks, although not quite so effective against tanks of the same tier, and definitely not effective against tanks of higher tier. But you've got to remember this is a light tank and it shouldn't be getting hit in the first place. So now we'll look at the view range and the signal range, and I have to say these are the things that let the tank down the most. It has the worst view range of all the tier 3 premiums by a huge margin. The second worst is the LTP at 310 meters, and the M3 Lite is worse by 30 meters. 280 view range is terrible. The signal range is also incredibly poor. Especially compared to the others. Only the T127 has worse signal range, but again, as I say, the T127 I don't classify as a light tank, and I'll cover that when it's time to review the T127. So the view range and signal range are awful, and that makes it a pretty poor scout for a light tank, which is a cardinal sin in my book. So we find ourselves on Prokhorovka, and I usually like to test tanks for scouting skills on either Malinovka or Prokhorovka because there were just so many great scouting spots, and this is no different. So let's try and use the M3 Lite as a scout and we'll see how we do. So once again I'm going to be playing this video on ×2, and as you can see, Matchmaker's been a little bit generous. We're tier 3 in a tier 3 game, but lots of tier 2s. And we're struggling. The T18 is getting up the hill faster than we are. So even though we're fast on the straight, we do struggle now and again. Acceleration isn't great. But let's just advance straight to a spotting position. We'll go to the bush and we should be able to spot everything coming over the railway lines and up towards the hill. So we used our speed to get into a really good position early, and we're not spotting anything. So, is it possible that there are no tanks down here? Okay, so a tank has been spotted. I don't know whether I spotted him. Another tank has been spotted. Again, don't know whether I spotted him. So the gun is punchy, especially when you come across tier 2 tanks. Okay, so no more tanks approaching the hill. Let's go down and see if we missed any. And there's a Marder 2. He's on the other side of the railway lines. Okay, a 2-pounder tier 2 British TD has just appeared. Why didn't we spot him approaching earlier? We should have been able to spot him, but we didn't. So I'm going to pause it there. You'll notice that the Universal Carrier fired a shot at me, and that just highlights a weak point I haven't mentioned yet. But if you, well, the bushes and smoke are in the way, but you have a rather large commander's hatch on top of your turret, and even though I couldn't see him to get a shot at him, he could see the outline of my turret hatch. So this isn't a very effective tank for going hull down on. You expose quite a bit of your turret before you manage to get your gun on target, but we're just going to continue. Alright, he is dead. So lots of tanks in the middle, and that's where I decide to go. So now I'm doing maybe a little bit more active scouting. So PZ-3A, and we're circling him, and he's dead. But again, our circle was quite large because our traverse speed is not the best. but we are doing some active scouting. Just a T-18 left on the enemy team. Oh, there he is. So he puts a shot into me. I tried to get in beside him, but he dies before I can do anything about it. So how did we do in that match as a scout? Well, as you can see, pretty poorly. We only managed to spot 3 tanks and only managed to get 404 damage upon detecting. Now, that position on the edge of the hill, looking down towards the railway lines, I should have been able, or I would have expected to have been able to spot all those tanks that we later encountered when we went down the hill, but it just didn't happen. So I think it's fair to say that the M3 Light doesn't make a very good scout, or at least doesn't make a very good passive scout. Okay, let's take a look at the gun. I am going to compare it. It has a 37mm gun. So I am going to compare this gun against the T-15, which also has a 37mm gun. And we're going to compare it against the Locust, which again has a 37mm gun. The T-127 and the LTP share a 45mm gun. I'll put that up anyhow, but I'm not really going to compare it. If we look at the rate of fire on the 37mm, we'll see that it is 24, which is quick. It is a very, very quick firing gun, but the T-15 and the Locust are, and even the 45mm on the other 2 tanks, it's better. So it's got the worst fire rate of all the Tier 3 premium light tanks. However, it's not worse by much, and you really don't notice it. We'll take a look at the penetration, and it's got 48mm of penetration, which is okay. It's better than the T-15, but not as good as the Locust. And as I say, the gun on the Locust is what makes it. It enables it to carry matches, even against tanks that are higher tier than it. The T-15 and unfortunately the M3 Light, in my opinion, suffer. They struggle against tanks that are higher tier, and they even struggle against some tanks of the same tier. It is a lot harder to carry a match in the M3 Light than it is in the Locust. Even the premium ammo is at 70mm of penetration, which again is the worst if you look at 74 on the T-15 and 78 on the Locust. So it really does have the worst penetration. Accuracy is also the worst at 0.46. In fact, it's the worst across the board. So it's got the worst rate of fire and the worst accuracy. Aim time is also, it's good at 1.9, is very good, but it's worse than the T-15 or the Locust, and it's only slightly worse than the 45mm on the LTP and T-127. Okay, so I've shown you the gun in a couple of previous replays, but seeing as we're talking about the gun now, we'll just do another quick one. So again, I'm going to play on ×2. We are on Himmelsdorf in a pretty much all tier 3 game. And once again, I use my speed to get to the top of the hill long before anyone else on my team. I work my way around the church, and we're going to put this gun into action. So a PZ-3A, first shot goes in, second shot goes in, so it's not slow. And there's the weak spot. So even though I managed to get down into the dip, the PZ-1C was still able to put a lot of shots into my turret and knock out my commander. Gun depression means I can't get at the PZ-1C before he reloads. So now I'm just waiting for the PZ-1C to engage someone else before... okay, he's engaging someone else, so now let's go back to work. So again, a bounce. And one shot in before he escapes. So there's a Cruiser 4 down here, but before we go, We'll put the gun into action again. Got a shot on an Su-76. So the gun is rapid firing. The other tier 3 premium tanks are faster, but it's not that slow. So first shot penetrates, the second one bounces in exactly the same position, and this is where this gun can get frustrating. So there's a Cruiser 4 down here. So he could do nothing but track me. I come around the corner and ninja a kill for 3 hit points. And we've got an LTP, and he's showing me his backside. So again, it's rapid firing, but the others just seem a little bit faster. We move down, and we get to demonstrate the gun one more time. This is a UE appearing. And I have no idea where that shot went. It looked as if it hit him, but it didn't. Okay, so the gun, when you come up against tanks that you can penetrate, can be quite punchy, but it's frustrating because you will tend to bounce on tanks you really should be able to penetrate. So let's talk about the crew layout. Well, this has a commander, a gunner, a driver, and a radio operator. So it is one of the few Russian tanks that does have a radio operator. As far as crew layouts go, it's pretty good. So while the crew layout is good, it does have a downside, and the downside is nothing to do with the tank or the crew layout. If we take a look at the Soviet tech tree, there aren't very many good light tanks. I mean, all the lower tier light tanks are pretty much forgettable. The first real light tank you get is the T-50, which used to be great, but in the patch a couple of patches ago, it was nerfed into the ground, so T-50 is no longer a good scout. So if you're going to be training a crew in premium light tanks, well, if you can't really train them for the T-50 and the T-50-2, which used to be the best scout in the game in my opinion, that's been removed. That just leaves you with the Tier 6 MT-25 tank to train your crew. And again, the layout is pretty good. You've got your radio operator here, so pretty much all you're missing is a loader. But the MT-25 is not a good tank, and I gave it about 10-11 goes, and I quit. I sold it. It was just not the T-50-2. It's not a bad scout, but if you want a Tier 6 scout, there are a lot of better Tier 6 scouts out there. So really, this is not going to be purchased as a crew trainer, because in my opinion, the higher tier crews aren't worth it, and the other Russian light tanks aren't worth it. You're not going to be keeping very many Russian light tanks in your garage. So let's talk about equipment. What sort of equipment do we have? Well, we have a pretty poor layout. As you can see, I've gone for vents, camo net, and binocs, simply because I had them in the garage. Vents, once again, and every review, if you can put vents on a tank, do 5% to all crew skills is amazing. It's great. It is the best piece of equipment you can put on a tank. Light spall liner, again, completely useless. It's a light tank. It doesn't need a spall liner. Ramming is going to kill you. HE shots are going to kill you. Complete waste of time, especially in this tank where it has next to no hit points. Camo net and binocs I went for simply because it's a light tank. I do try to scout a little bit in it, but it doesn't make a very, very good scout. However, these are free to add on and free to remove, and I don't really want to spend any gold on this tank. Coated optics, again, the view range on this tank is so poor the coated optics would be a complete waste on the tank, even though you are active a lot of the time in it. Gun laying drive, again, completely waste of money. This thing has a 1.9 aiming speed. You don't need any faster. So this is a huge waste of money. And toolbox, again, it's always nice to have a toolbox on a tank, but not on a light tank. If you get into a situation where you're tracked or you need to repair your engine, you're going to die soon afterwards. It's not worth putting a toolbox on. As a compromise, I went for the camo net and the binocs, because occasionally I do want to sit in a bush, and because of the poor view range, the binocs at least gives me a little bit more than the coated optics does. So if you guys are regular viewers, you will know that I like to end up my reviews with a game that shows all the strengths and weaknesses and pretty much everything I've been talking about up till now. So we are in a tier 3 game on mines, and we are starting in the north, so I am going to make the usual light tank run for the hill. Unfortunately, this PZ-1C is blocking me and is continuing to block me, so my approach run has been slowed down. Now he's blocking the T-60. So, not a good start. Tank is fast, but it doesn't help when your own teammates block you. And another tank I love and have reviewed is the T2 Light, and that's on the hill already. So here we go. Shooting on the move. First kill. Swing around. Second kill. So the gun is punchy. The traverse is pretty good. Not great, but it's not bad. And again, dealing out damage. So I tried to track the PZ-38T, but it didn't work. So even a tier lower, the T2 Light is doing everything I want to do, and it's probably doing it better. So another kill. And I pop down to the bushes to let my binocs kick in, but then think better of it. There are tanks behind me. So we are dealing damage. I mean, the rate of fire, although the slowest of all the tier 3 premiums, we are able to do damage. So I pop down, let the binocs kick in. They've kicked in, but I haven't spotted anyone. Again, view range is quite poor. Nice shot with not much to aim at the LTP. But our team are dominating, so again I'm going to use my speed, but once again you see that little T2 Light. He's just doing everything I'm trying to do and better. So I ignore RT, I leave him to the friendly tanks, and I'm going to head over here to see if I can do more damage. But if you look at the mini-map, and you'll see that even though I'm fast, the T2 Light and the PZ-1C are faster. So they are able to sweep up a lot quicker than I can. So we've got an LTP. Again, we put shots in. He's dead before we can finish him. We've got an H-35, a Hotchkiss, and I can't penetrate him. So there's the poor penetration. I switch my target to the LTP. First shot goes in. Now I'm bouncing. You can go back to the H-35. I'm still bouncing. So I switch to premium. Now I can penetrate. And he dies. So the gun, a little bit disappointing on the penetration side, and accuracy, even though it's not great, did let me down in other games. In this one, it behaved itself. Okay guys, to sum up, the M3 Lite, is it worth it? It's okay. If you're a tank collector, then yeah, go ahead, get the M3 Lite. The tank can be fun, but it can be frustrating sometimes. If you're buying the tank to train a crew for your Russian light tanks, it's not worth it because there aren't very many good Russian light tanks. It has the worst number of hit points, it has the worst view range, it has the worst signal range, it has the worst rate of fire, although it doesn't really affect it that much. It has the worst penetration of all the tier 3 light tanks. So really there's not a lot to recommend this tank. You have a large weak spot on top of your turret that prevents you from going hull down, but altogether it's not bad. It is not a bad tank, it's not good. So if you're happy with buying a tank that is just okay and you want to collect it because it is fairly rare, go ahead. It's probably worth it just to have it in your collection. Occasionally when I drive the M3 Lite, I get a lot of question marks in chat going M3 Lite, question mark, question mark. So it is nice to drive a tank that is unusual, but if you're buying it to earn money, if you're buying it because you want to play it regularly, there are better options, and the Locust is a much better tank. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.